Well, with thousands of jobs on the chopping block this week, is it time for D.C. to take a cue from the bayou? Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal wants to eliminate his state's income tax and corporate tax. The Republican governor saying, quote, it's time to change so people can keep more of their own money and foster an environment where businesses want to invest and create good-paying jobs. So how would he pay for it? Well, with a hike in the state's 4% sales tax. And someone here says, let's hike this idea right up to Washington, D.C. Is that right or wrong? Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus with Mr. Steve Forbes, Elizabeth McDonald, Rick Unger, John Tamny, Rich Karlgaard, and Mike Ozanian. John Tamny, you love this idea, and you think it would be good for the whole country. Explain.
It would be great for the whole country. One of the biggest scandals of modern times is not our deficits, but the fact that the federal government collects $2.5 trillion on an annual basis and more. With a consumption tax or a sales tax, this is the lone way that we as Americans can limit how much money gets to the federal government. And limiting it, more businesses would be created, more jobs created, plus the federal government would not be penalizing our work. With it not penalizing, we'd get more work and more jobs.
It sounds good to me. Rick Unger, to you?
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. Here's the problem. I'll give you two reasons why this doesn't work, and I won't even touch on the incredibly regressive nature of this. Problem number one.
Hold on a second. By regressive, you mean it hits the poor more than rich.
Exactly,
Go ahead.
Exactly. Problem number one. Look, you want to put the brakes on an economy that's starting to come around. Imagine what would happen here. First of all, in order to keep this revenue neutral, you're looking at a 20 to 30% sales tax to replace what we raise in income tax. Add that to the state tax that Governor Jindal wants to add. 30% added on to the cost of buying goods. Nobody's going to be able to afford it. No one's going to go shopping.
But, Steve, this country is a great experiment ground, and the states are the ones that experiment with ideas that might work in the federal level. Don't states that have eliminated income tax do better than the others?
Oh, absolutely right. There are 9 states that don't have a personal income tax, and as a whole, they do far better than states with income taxes. You compare, for example, the state of Vermont with the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire has no sales tax and no personal income tax. It has done far better economically over time than neighboring state of Vermont, which is a very so-called progressive state. On the national level, though, David, I do have to put a caution. You better change the Constitution, or we're going to end up with what most states have, and that is both an income tax and a consumption tax. So we got to get rid of
Unfortunately, the Constitution was changed in the early part of the 20th century in order to bring in the income tax.
So we have to change it, or we're going to get the worst of both worlds.
Well, Mike, I was surprised, though, to hear that you're against an idea from Bobby Jindal, who you normally like quite a bit.
Well, I don't like sales taxes, David, simply because we've seen this experiment in Europe with VATs. They're a terrible idea. They're more onerous often than income taxes. So, and they're very sneaky, too, particularly VATs, because they get put in at every little element of sales, so you don't even really know what the true tax rate is or the cost. And Jindal's program basically is to replace one source of government revenue with another, so it doesn't do what John Tamny would like and what I would like, which is to actually reduce the amount of money that flows to the government.
All right. Well, Rich, Milton Friedman, the great free market economist, didn't like sales tax, or at least a national sales tax, because he said it worked too well. It's too easy for governments to continue to raise money in those. And yet you're in favor of this idea. Why?
No, I'm in favor of it at the state level. The question you asked about, Steve, and experimentation, boy, that's, one of the beauties of the United States is that we have 50 states, and the 50 states are free to try different revenue-raising methods. In addition to New Hampshire versus Vermont, you have the state of Washington versus the state of Oregon. Washington has no income tax, and it's doing quite a bit better. So these things work at the state level, but Milton Friedman is absolutely right. At the national level, it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for the variety of reasons, among them the constitutional problems.
So, EMAC, is this one of those ideas that works beautifully in the state level, but it doesn't translate well to the federal level?
No, I think it would translate to the federal level. Look, our federal income tax system is, like Rand Paul has said, it really is a disaster. It truly has made more liars out of American people than golf. And what we're talking about is essentially a system.
That's saying something.
Yeah, that's right. It's essentially now a system that's been simplified beyond all understanding. And what we're talking about is a sales tax, not a VAT. We're talking about a sales tax. It's called the fair tax. And what it means is, yes, it would hit consumption. It could start at 17%. Rick Unger makes a great point, though. State and local, though, would have their own sales tax systems. I'll tell you the big problem. And also, it would make a really competitive healthcare market. But here's the problem. The senior lobby would really lobby hard against it because the seniors have already paid their income taxes, and when they start spending their income into a sales tax, boy, they would be really upset about it.
Mike saying, just for the sake of simplicity alone, EMAC is 100% right. This last tax increase that we've had to endure makes the tax code even more complex than it was before. Just for the sake of simplicity, don't you like this idea?
I want a flat income tax rate, David. That would make it simple and fair. I want everyone to pay the same proportion of their income in taxes, which gives everybody the same amount of skin in the game. That would also slow down government spending because people would say, wow, I'm also going to be taxed for this new program. That's what I want.
All right. Well, I know Steve's not going to give you an argument on the flat tax, but Steve, the beauty of what's happening at the state level in this country is that for all the messiness that we have inside the Beltway, they're really starting to get their act together in the state level, aren't they?
They are indeed. And indeed, states that are reducing their state income taxes are doing very well. States that are very good in terms of their finances. Look at Indiana, manufacturing state. Very good governor who's now left office, go to Purdue, Mitch Daniels.
Replaced by Mike Pence, another Republican.
Who may run for president someday. But Indiana is the one state in the country that got a AAA rating, got its rating improved without an energy base because of the good finances that Mitch Daniels put in.
And, Rich, you look at all these governors. You look at Bobby Jindal, Scott Walker from Wisconsin, of course. We mentioned Mike Pence, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley from down south. There are 30 for all of the Democratic moves in the presidential race. There was a move in the opposite direction. I think Republicans picked up another state, so there are now 30 Republican governors in the United States.
Yeah, and that point is lost on a lot of pundits, and now we're seeing this yawning gap between the states that are getting their fiscal house in order versus those cough, cough, blue states that voted overwhelmingly for Obama, like Illinois and California and New York, that are not.
What do you mean,
so,
cough,
I mean,
cough?
this is going to be a wonderful experiment that is playing out, and I hope in 2014 people really take note.
Rick, ideologically, do you feel a little lonely on the state level?
No, the only thing I feel is this remarkable gerrymandering that's been the result of it.
Wait a minute. You've got to explain that one. You don't think the public willingly elected these Republican governors?
You know what I know? I know that 1.5 million more votes were cast for Democrats in Congress than they were for Republicans. And guess why Republicans control the House? Because of the gerrymandering that was done by the Republicans in these
states. But, Steve, they
states.
not only control
the
House of Congress, but they also control the state legislature. So on the state level, people seem to be for more fiscal responsibility, do they not?
Yes, they do. And you saw it in the state of Wisconsin early into mid-2012 when Scott Walker faced a recall and was the one governor that faced down a recall successfully. People like success. So you see it in Michigan, you see it in Wisconsin, you see it in other states. So, yes, when people see good fiscal responsibility, they respond positively.
Let me go back to John Tamny, though, for the last word. John, a lot of people say on the state level this idea of switching from an income tax to a sales tax is okay, but not on a national level because they don't want to give the feds that much power. Do you agree?
I totally disagree. I don't want the federal government to know how much I make. A national sales tax is my way of keeping my income private, and it's my way of starving a government that's constantly wasting my money on things I don't want it to.
Quickly, it's hard to believe that we've forgotten that the United States was founded to avoid high taxation. John Tamny is absolutely right. It would also create an economic boom because capital would come pouring back into the U.S. economy.
Got to be